Brian Thomas Jr., a potential trade candidate for the Jaguars this offseason? We're going to talk about it on today's show because there are two articles out there that pose Brian Thomas Jr. could be on his way out from Jacksonville ahead of the 2026 NFL season. Plus, we're going to talk some re-signings when it comes to the Jaguars that they made over the last 24 hours. So make sure you stay tuned for that at the back half of today's show. But before we get into it, guys, I wanted to make a deal with you because we're talking trades. We've been talking trades all offseason, and we'll probably continue into talking trades even through the draft, where James Gladstone made the infamous draft day swap to get Travis Hunter, right? But I want to make a deal with you guys at home. Your support has been unbelievable. But when you guys subscribe, it's truly a kind of exchange that we're giving here at Chat Sports. Because if you guys hit that subscribe button, make sure you turn your notifications on, you guys are going to receive Jaguars content all year long, whether it's the draft, free agency, we've got the combine coming up, during the season, whatever the case may be, postseason, maybe even a Super Bowl 61 appearance for the Jags, hopefully. We'll see. You'll get coverage all year long here on the channel. And if you hit that subscribe button, it's completely free. But I receive that support. And the more subscribers that we get, the more content we're able to make on this channel. So if you could hit that subscribe button, it would greatly be appreciated to me. And it helps me help you. Let's make a deal and let's get into today's show. Aaron Schatz of ESPN was the first one that I wanted to discuss here in terms of Brian Thomas Jr. and the idea that Thomas could be on his way out of Duval County. He said the following. This idea would have seemed ridiculous a year ago after Thomas put up 87 catches for over 1,200 yards, 10 touchdowns in his 2024 rookie campaign. But Thomas seemed to be on a completely different page from quarterback Trevor Lawrence last season, even as the rest of the Jaguars were having success around the wideout. And no doubt it was a down year for Brian Thomas Jr. No doubt about it. I mean, he said it best in that kind of article that, going through that rookie campaign, I mean, all the talk, right, going into that draft class was Malik Neighbors, Marvin Harrison Jr., Rome Odunze. And then there's this other, LSU wide receiver paired along with Malik Neighbors, who really in some ways stole the show across the NFL. And then he follows it up with one of the worst sophomore slumps that we've seen out of the wide receiver position. I'm not trying to dispute that because we were talking about this guy as potentially, if he were to follow up his rookie campaign that you see there on the left with a similar, stat line, are we talking about him as a top 20, top 15, dare I say top 10 receiver in the game? That did not happen. You see the numbers on your screen, 133 targets to 91, and just the production was down across the board. Something that I just didn't think that the Jaguars, were going to be pleased with and also, look at as, hey, he solidified himself as our number one. That just didn't happen, right? And we saw some emergence from other guys that we'll talk about here in a second, more from Schatz. Thomas's production fell to 48 catches for 707 yards and 2 scores. The Jaguars have Travis Hunter coming back. We'll talk about that more here in a second. They signed Jacoby Myers to an extension, and Parker Washington had a breakout second half of the 2025 season. There's room here to trade Thomas, and his talent could fetch a high draft pick to help make up for the picks the Jags lost when they traded for Hunter in 2025. It's certainly something worth considering. First off, I just want to say that, again, sophomore slumps, it happens. We acknowledge it. It wasn't the year that Brian Thomas Jr. or anybody that was rooting for him won it last year. That being said, I'm not willing to completely write him off and just cast away Brian Thomas Jr. into, another team's roster simply for the fact that he had a down year. He has shown no signs of being a difficulty in the locker room. I think he's going to be a guy that's going to work his ass off during the offseason programs to work and get back to that rookie year form that he showed. And look, was it perfect? There were some confidence levels. There's some stuff over the middle. There was a whole bunch of things that went wrong last year. I'm just not ready to quit on Brian Thomas Jr. as a player. And look, it's one thing, right, because we're going to get into more of the receivers aspect of it. We've already talked about it. Travis Hunter is going to be a primarily defensive player. He's going to be this team's cornerback one this, upcoming season, right? So he'll play a part-time role on the receiving end. I don't want a part-time receiver being my wide receiver 3 in that aspect. Now, again, they could add somebody in the draft or maybe in free agency, but Thomas Jr., in my opinion, is this team's future in terms of where he'll be in this wide receiver room. Ultimately, we'll tell, but he's a top 3 guy that if I'm thinking about Jacoby Myers, Parker Washington, and him, I want to roll with that going into 2026. Connor Orr of Sports Illustrated was another article that brought up the possibility that Brian Thomas Jr. could be on his way out of Jacksonville. He said the following. While it would not seem likely given that Travis Hunter is indeed not changing football forever and will be relegated to mostly defense in 2026, as we previously just talked about. Liam Cohen needs wide receivers suited specifically for his system. Trevor Lawrence preferred Parker Washington in gotta have it situations a year ago, and his specificity, I definitely butchered that, apologies, may lead him to exploring options that make up for the draft capital Jacksonville lost on the Hunter deal. Specificity. Oh, producer Reed's trying to help me out here. I am lost. Regardless, let's look at the Jaguars depth chart because, again, Parker Washington, that last month of the year, he rose to the challenge. And in that playoff game against the Buffalo Bills, there's no doubt about it. He was this team's number one option. When he went out with that concussion, the offense truly felt different with him not out there. Jakobi Meyers, as previously mentioned by Aaron Schatz, they traded for him and signed to an extension. He does all the little things well. He's been a veteran in this league and can really provide a lot of great insight to a Parker Washington or Brian Thomas Jr. here in Jacksonville. And then you got Travis Hunter, who, again, is going to be kind of your combo-ish, part-time. We'll see how many packages he actually gets on offense. That being said, and to round this conversation into a whole, Jaguars wide receiver one, well, whomever that's going to be, is truly up for grabs. Does Parker Washington continue that momentum that he had that last month or so plus of the year? Does Jakobi Meyers reestablish himself as his team's number one? Or does Brian Thomas Jr. realize that, the guy he was as a rookie is still in there, comes in with a new, fresh mindset, a new way just to, embrace Liam Cohen's system and figure out how to make this work? Because looking at the numbers from last season, this is just numbers as a Jaguar. So obviously Jakobi Meyers played more games last year with the Raiders. That being said, he played 9 games with the Jaguars. So these are the numbers as Jaguars in 2025. Parker Washington, again, had a really breakout-ish year. 58 receptions, 847 yards, 5 touchdowns. Jakobi Meyers, 75 receptions, 835 yards, 3 touchdowns. Those numbers actually may not be right, but we'll double-check those. And then 48 receptions, 707 yards for 2 touchdowns. So it's combined. Yeah, I think that's combined. It just says 9 games played for Jakobi Meyers. So those are actually his numbers from the Raiders and the Jaguars. So apologies on that regard. Regardless, I wouldn't break up this wide receiver core without another year under Liam Cohen. I just wouldn't. I think that this wide receiver room, along with Brenton Strange, we'll see if they bring back Travis Etienne, Bashal Tutin, LaQuinn Allen. They've got a lot of weapons that you like on this team. And I'm not saying that they're set in stone, that there's no price that I would move, say, a Brian Thomas Jr., but unless the team is drastically willing to overpay for BTJ, I could see either him, Parker Washington, or Meyers as the team's wide receiver one. So I'm not really willing to punt on either one of those 3. Not that you would for Meyers or Parker Washington. Obviously, I think Washington will get an extension this offseason, and Meyers you already have locked in. So that just kind of brings it to a point where I'll ask you guys, because I've been kind of rambling on here, and I'm keeping Brian Thomas Jr. I'm typing my Y's for yeses, but I want to hear from you guys. Be the GM. Would you trade Brian Thomas Jr.? Type Y for yes. Type in for no. Let me know down in the comment section. For me, it's, you got to give something out of the ordinary to get Brian Thomas Jr. off from the Jaguars. If I'm the GM, we'll see if James Gladstone feels the same way. Going to speak on some recent re-signings the Jaguars made. So we broke down the Christian Braswell re-signing with a short here on the channel. Appreciate the support and the love on that one, which was huge because I think Christian Braswell is a guy that, filled in for the Jaguars given all their injuries that they had last year and just kind of some of the needs that Jacksonville had last season. And Keith Taylor, also another cornerback in the secondary. He is going to be somebody that is going to be back in Duval County as a restricted free agent here, who was announced Friday. You guys are watching this on Saturday, so yesterday, huge for the Jaguars. And when you think about this cornerback depth chart for Jacksonville, Monteric Brown, we'll see if they re-sign him. Greg Newsome, also free agent. So your 2 top corners for a majority of the end of last year are both free agents. I think Newsome's more than likely going to walk. Just don't see the fit. They were trying to get off Tyson Campbell. They took a risk. It didn't work. Regardless, he is expected to walk. We'll see if they re-sign Monteric Brown. Travis Hunter, though, will slide into that cornerback 1 spot with either Monteric Brown or somebody else filling in that CB2 spot. We'll see. And I think Jordan Lewis locks down that nickel spot with Jarian Jones, a very capable corner filling in for Jacksonville as well. Bottom line, I'm really excited to see the secondary in action. I think this is going to be one of the more underrated units for a Jaguars team that was one of the top teams in the NFL in interceptions last year. Antonio Johnson's going to have a more just featured role as one of these teams' young, bright stars, we'll see who lands that other spot outside of, or opposite, excuse me, of Antonio Johnson, whether that's Murray, whether it's Ray Lane, whatever the case may be, or maybe do they draft somebody, who knows. But I think that Monteric Brown, if he resigns with Travis Hunter on the opposite side, those are your two outside guys. Jordan Lewis as your nickel. That's a pretty formidable force right there in Jacksonville. I'm not going to lie. And it's not, outside of Hunter, it's not the biggest names in the world. But that's what kind of makes this defense something that I like, is that there's no selfishness, there's no ego, and it's going to be somebody that, under Anthony Campanelli, who's coming back, and he's going to be coaching these guys up, again, now with more defined roles and not so much kind of switching in and out in terms of who's getting snaps for the Jaguars at those quarterback spots. I'm very curious to know how it's going to look, but I'm excited to see what the future holds. That is going to be it for today's video, guys. Appreciate y'all for tuning in, and let me know down in the comment section below, again, would you trade Brian Thomas Jr.? A lot of buzz around this. I think it's just going to be a popular name that we're going to hear all off season long, so probably going to have some more videos on him if I'm going to be honest, but hey, if Jaguars news or rumors happens, we're going to have you covered here at Jags Now. As always, Jags fans, Duval. We'll see you next time.